So the talk tonight is on the stage 7 of the ox herding pictures, forgetting the ox. The ox herding pictures here is it's kind of a map of our practice. Okay, stages of practice is a good way to look at it. So it's the stages that are outlining our relationship with our heart mind. Right? The ox kind of represents our true heart mind in all of its unruliness and its chaos and its energy and its power. Our heart mind is not something that we kind of put away in a box somewhere we conceptually really understand in a way. It's a powerful thing. Powerful and brave and heartful and quite something. And it's quite something to tame this heart mind and then to ride it with mastery. And now at this stage, to forget it. Because at this stage, after we've mastered or tamed the ox in previous stages, now we're sitting at home in the image, smile on our face, the sun high in the sky. The verse goes, astride the ox you reach home. Now at rest, the ox is forgotten. With the bright sun high in the sky, you are in blissful repose. Whip and tether are abandoned behind the thatched hut. You put them away. I'm gonna change a word which I don't like. With the bright sun high in the sky, you are in happy, contented repose, not blissful repose. Blissful gets overloaded, like our life is in this constant state of ecstasy and joy. And that's not what this is. I like happy and contented a lot better. I think that's truer to the quality of this stage that we reach when our practice matures. Some of you know that my dharma name, Gyodo, actually means the way of contentment. And that was an aspiration that Maizumi Roshi gave me. He didn't know me that well. So my name is actually based on my grandfather's first name, which is my middle name, which is Guido. So we kind of worked with a few dharma names that we based on that, and came with Gyodo. And that was quite magical because I was a cheerful person, but I wasn't really a contented person. I presented as a cheerful person, but inside I was not at all. I was depressed and uncentered and not happy with my moment-to-moment existence when I started my Zen practice. So for him to call me the way of contentment, like, well, we'll see how this is. But it's a profound path to walk the walk and to find true contentment in your life on a moment-to-moment basis. And that's what has been reached with this stage. That's what we reach, a place of contentment. The emotional tone quality is relaxed, it's peaceful, contented. Okay. Just a quick review of previously on ox herding stages. The first stage, we started out confused, and we became adventurous and vulnerable as we started out on our path. We became peaceful, relieved, and inquisitive as we started to see the path. Then we became spirited, effortful, and struggling as we got a hold of this practice. We realized the discipline that was needed to impose upon our own minds, day to day, moment to moment. Okay. And we got some facility with it, and we maintained our concentration, our vigilance, and our devotion to discipline. And this required a lot of patience as year after year, slowly, layer by layer, we managed to master this unruly heart mind and take it wherever we wanted to take it. And then when we achieved real mastery over it, we were free, unbounded, and it was indescribably pleasurable to be able to take our heart mind, ride our heart mind wherever we wanted to. Now we've come to a place, the ox is gone. and even forgotten as something separate from your own life. It's no longer you riding the ox, which means all the technique and the artifice that you've needed over the years in order to get a familiarity with your heart mind. Now that need is gone. The need for external discipline is gone because the practice does itself. It's no longer you practicing on yourself. There's no longer a separation between ourselves and our practice. Up until this point, we've kind of got these natural distinctions that are arising in our mind, even questions perhaps. This is Zen and this isn't Zen. I'm meditating now, I'm not meditating. I'm meditating now, I'm not meditating in this situation. Something is dharma and something isn't dharma. I went through a long period where I had my dharma friends and my non-dharma friends. I meant something specific by that. It was those who consciously practice the dharma. But there's a layer in that too, where it's like, well, these I interact with in a certain way and these I interact with another way. But all through that period, we've got these labels within our internal experience. Something spiritual and something isn't. But here at this stage, it's all dharma. It's all practice. It's all meditation. The sun is high in the sky at this place. The world is illuminated. But this is not the illumination of an external light. This is not everything visible with the vegetative eye. That's what poet William Blake called this, vegetative eye. And what we see here is the material world. This is a different type of illumination. It's an inner illumination. Forms are illuminated in inner illumination, but they aren't the types of forms that we're used to seeing in this three-dimensional world. Inner illumination. There's an ancient Chinese commentary on this stage, which says, we only make the ox a temporary subject. So all through this, now we've forgotten the ox and it's not coming back. So now at this point, we'll bring up this description of it. We only make the ox a temporary subject. So this ox is our true heart mind and all of its unruly wisdom power. We kind of make it a kind of being with a special view on the world, or a special way of being in the world. You know, maybe all through practice, we might even check in with ourselves and say, WWBD. You know, what would Buddha do? Right? It's actually a good question, you know, or early, all through practice. It's a great question, actually. What would awakening itself do in this situation? It's a nice way of working with the precepts. But see, at this point, with the maturity of practice, you realize that you are awakened. So you don't have to say WWBD, you just say WWID. What will I do? You probably don't say WWID. Does anybody say WWBD or WWJD? That's what I see on the bumper stickers, WWJD. What would Jesus do? I always like that question. I still like that question. So the Chinese commentary that I just mentioned, we only make the ox a temporary subject. So temporarily, it's a special way of seeing being. Okay, and then it goes on to say, it is as if the relationship of the moon emerging from behind a cloud. Okay, so that moonlight is only something noteworthy When it's absent, i.e. it's completely behind the clouds. And then when it's emerging, and we start to see, oh, okay, here's the light. Okay, but then you can see the edge with the darkness. Okay, there's a kind of a distinction there. But when it comes out fully from behind the clouds, like the image in this, the sun is high in the sky, no clouds, then it's not even a thing. It's not even noteworthy. It's just the natural environment of your mind. So this is very striking. Well, it's striking when it's gone, and it's striking as it emerges from the cloud. Then, as it stays high in the cloud, high in the sky, day after day after day, it's no longer striking. It's just light. So this reminded me of this quote from Gyodo Sensei Roshi from the previous century, which I typed out and I had during our Zazen Kai last month, and then I believe I shared it in this group in one of my Dharma talks, but I want to say it again because it's so alive. So he said, in the ups and downs of life, we're deceived by the difference in the balance, like an elevator accelerating or decelerating. So saying, I've had Satori, is only feeling a difference in the balance. Saying I'm deluded is feeling another. To say food tastes delicious or terrible, to be rich or poor, are all just feelings about shifts in the balance. So as that light is emerging from behind the clouds, that's a shift in the balance, and it's something. But in this stage now, the sun is high in the sky. It's fully emerged. There's no more edges. There's no more shifts in the balance because you're present with your life every moment. In his metaphor, the elevator has reached a constant velocity. One way, one taste. No more speeding up or slowing down. No this way or that way. Every way is the one way. Every taste is the one taste. And there's nothing special about it. But this way of being is very different from the way you used to be in your life. It's a very different way of being with your own personhood. It's a very different relationship to your life and your experience. Zen Master Rinzai called this the true person of no rank. No rank. The difference between this rank and that rank is just a shift in the balance. In this place, the struggle ends. I've shared before something that Mazumi Roshi said to me in my first year of practice. I went to Dokusan with him, and I was struggling. And he said to me with this little smile on his face, and he was warm, he said, there should be no struggle. And I was so mad at him for saying that. What do you mean, no struggle? I'm struggling mightily. But it was such a inspiring, ultimately, to hear him say that, because I realized, okay, there shouldn't be. I feel a little ashamed and embarrassed that there is. But I knew he didn't mean it that way. I knew he meant it that there is a place in this practice where there will be no struggle. That will be the real fruit of this practice. There will be no struggle. And that's true. The struggle ends. Practice becomes joyful. It's no longer a chore. Your practice becomes effortless, and your life becomes effortless in a certain way. You are still efforting in a certain way, but the efforting that you used to do to make things okay is gone. You don't have to do that anymore. The study of yourself has become fully internalized. At the beginning, is a difficult study. Is no longer a difficult study. The question is alive in each moment. So it's not a knowledge that you're internalizing. And sometimes we think that that's what practice is, that we're looking for a certain kind of view of what reality is or what our self is. But that's not really the study of ourself that we're doing. It's not like we're studying an academic discipline. You know, we're not getting a PhD in something where now we have this knowledge and understanding of who we are or how the world works. It's an internalized way of questioning and relating to your own experience. Every moment of your life is dharma, and there's no more any technique needed. There's no more agenda, there's no achievement that you're striving for. You do have the intention to influence the world and help others, but that compassionate action manifests much more freely. You say wisdom and compassion mutually arise here. Okay. So we've gone a long time developing compassion and developing our insight or our wisdom, and we're trying to put that wisdom into practice compassionately. So there's a kind of maybe a gap, and we're trying to apply it. You know, well, that's the WWBD kind of thing, and that's needed to do that. I'm saying from my deepest wisdom, what is the most compassionate thing to do here? Okay, but when we fully fruit the practice is no longer something that we're doing, it's something that's doing itself. Then we're not doing that anymore. Then the compassion arises naturally with your own wisdom. Your intuition guides you in what to do, what to say, what not to say, when to act. Okay. You just become much more sensitive and attuned, and you find that working in a way that's quite mysterious and magical. It doesn't always work that way. I mean, I'm not saying that you get to a place and you never have any questions and everything is perfectly compassionate. It definitely doesn't work that way. But there is something very real about this level of maturity that can be a big part of the functioning of your life. You notice what's missing from the way you were 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 years ago in one way, in that the kind of thoughts of lying or of hurting someone or of neglecting to do something that might hurt someone, or that was a real part of your existence, your mental existence. They just don't arise. It just doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to do something that hurts somebody else. It doesn't feel good when you neglected to do something to help someone in a way that you could have or would like to. It's in your very body to act compassionately. So the danger at this stage is to avoid the messiness of life, to hang out in that home, that thatched hut in the image with a contented smile on your face, and stay there. So even though you see through the insubstantiality, or rather you see through the substantiality of things, you see the way that we create our own suffering, you see the way that you and others are constantly projecting your views onto reality and creating your world in that way, you realize you still need to respect the reality, the provisional reality of forms and how it conditions people's experience and the usefulness of those forms. So you maintain a practice and you maintain a discipline and you maintain boundaries. And you encourage people to be scrupulous in their actions. You don't withdraw from all of those things just because you don't need them anymore, perhaps. You don't pull away from it, but it is a risk. Some people do that. I saw this video of, it was on Ramana Maharshi, teacher from the previous century, and he had a student, Papaji, who became a Advaita Vedanta teacher, and Papaji had a big experience with Ramana Maharshi, and he just wanted to hang out with Ramana Maharshi like every second of his life. But some things came up in his family, and he said, Ramana, Papaji said to him, he said, that's all a dream, I don't want to do that. I just want to be here and be blissful with you in the presence of God or Krishna. And Ramana said, no, you have to go take care of your family. Don't fear the dream. I really like that. So here we don't fear the dream. In Zen, when we get teaching transmission, there's a phrase that's used. It said, we call it, it's taking on the iron yoke. So when you start a disciplined spiritual practice, you're taking on this iron yoke to a certain extent. And then when you kind of commit to becoming a teacher and functioning in that way, that's really taking on a really big iron yoke. Because you're acting just in the way that your sangha, most needs you. There's no thought of personal interest involved there, but it's a lot of work. It can be a lot of work. In fact, it's always a lot of work. So we keep going with the robes, with the forms, with the liturgy, with the programs, with the practices, with the sharing, with all of those things, even though, we may not need them the way we used to need them. But they're extremely powerful in helping us along, along the stages of this practice. It was the discipline form from 2 stages ago. Those forms, the liturgy, practice forms, essential. In the kind of middle stages of my practice with my teachers, I kind of marveled at how they just kept showing up day after day, running the Zen Center, sweating, crying, really throwing themselves into it. So why are they not retired on a beach in Mexico, or Spain? Why are they not doing that? I was a bit tongue-in-cheek. I kind of knew, but I also I didn't fully appreciate just the full. It was a real question for me. I guess I'll put it that way. It's a real question. It's like, do you need this? do you need this? And the fact is, they didn't need it. They didn't need it. They could have done that. But they chose to allow their functioning to just unfold. And just to share in the way that they had learned and learn what worked for them and share that with whoever might come, whoever might resonate with it. And I feel a lot of that myself now. I don't need the forms the way I used to need them, but they are just the natural way that I function in the world. And I know that that's my work, is just to share them with others. I know the work is so infinitely deep and subtle. There's always, always, always more layers for me to uncover and explore, layers of reactivity. So I'm not done with the work by any means, but I don't need it in the way that I used to need it. If people didn't show up to sit, that would be okay. I would do something else. Find a way to, share the dharma in another way. So, but this seems to, I know this path works, so that's why I offer it. I try not to fall into that danger zone of this one, which is just to hang out contentedly. Even though my name is the way of contentment. So I've actually got a good. Yeah, I got some of the goodness of that contentedness, but I never forget the way, okay? The way never ends. The way of contentedness never ends. So we'll see where that goes maybe next week, in the next stage.